Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Matheson Library. It's a great honor for us at Matheson Library to have all of you tonight. So Matheson Library and Monash Herfit Indonesian Engagement Center tonight is hosting an arts and activism exhibition and talk featuring Alit Ambara, one of Indonesia's most prolific poster artists. I believe Mas Alit arrived on Friday night, am I correct? Yes. And this morning he has done a student engagement program with Birgit by running a very interactive class with students from anthropology department. So it's quite a long day, I guess, for Mas Alit today. So tonight is the official launch of Alit Ambara posters exhibition, and followed by a talk which would be moderated by Professor Ariel Herianto, and we will have Alit and two commentators, Dr. Birgit Brochla. I hope I can pronounce this close enough. From Anthropology Faculty of Arts, Monash University, and Dr. Edwin Jurens, Indonesian Studies, the University of Melbourne. But before the talk, I'm pleased to inform you that we have a representative from the Indonesian Consul General to Victoria and Tasmania, Bapak Alphonse Sroyer, who is going to deliver a short address and formally launch the exhibition. I'll hand it over to you, Bapak. Thank you.
Good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I'm Alphonse. I'm a newcomer in the Indonesian Consul General in Melbourne. I've been 3 months so far. And first of all, I would like to convey the apology of Madam Consul, Ibu Speaker Tutu Hatunewa, for not being able to attend this auspicious event. She asked me to send her best wishes to you all and hope that the exhibition will be a success. She is now in Jakarta, and that's why I'm here. Well, I don't wanna miss any message from her, so that's why I keep it very great in a very short speech. So I would like to read it from her to our beautiful friends here tonight. It's a great honor for me to address this wonderful event of arts and activism exhibitions and talk featuring Bapak Alit Ambara, and would like to express my gratitude to Bapak Ariel Herianto for your contribution toward promotion, culture and arts between Indonesia and Australia. It is indeed a splendid idea to host such a unique and prestigious event, in which I truly believe we also reinforce Indonesia-Australia cooperations in arts and culture. At this office, we would like to extend our appreciation to Monash Herfit Indonesian Engagement Center as a dynamic and contemporary platform for Monash researchers engaging with Indonesia. We are here because we believe in the strength of culture, and I believe that culture is an extraordinary asset owned by all nations. Every nation will never lack and run out of their values and cultural heritage. It is a universal language that can be enjoyed by all, without saying the race, religion, ethnicity, and ethnic backgrounds. This fact puts culture as an effective tool to bridge differences and diversity in global society. Therefore, we are very welcome Bapak Ali Ambara to share us your insights on your artwork as a way to promote not only Indonesian cultures, but also our way of life. The more we promote culture among nations, the more we open the opportunity for the interactions of our people. If we find a common interest among us, be that culture or other subjects, we can surely venture in a broader forms of cooperations. That's the goal as a neighbor that can be reached in two words: respect and friendship. I wish you enjoy these beautiful exhibitions and explore more about Indonesia tonight. So that's the message from Adams. I would like to say something from myself. I'd like to, just a short story about me. Long before I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, I was a student and I was an activist at the times. I keep, dreaming about the chance. Sometimes people say the youth is the assets, youth is a chance, but sometimes I feel that youth is a victim of chance. At the times, I was thinking to myself that it's hard to change the systems when we stand at a distance. So I joined to the ministry, would like to engage all my friends, all the people, all the roots people, to hear what they want, to hear what they say, and try to deliver it to all the people who make the policy. So me, myself, very happy to be here and share the exploration from Bapak Alit and all the beautiful friends in here. And also very thank you, because as a newcomer, I just got a beautiful and great insight, new friends tonight. On behalf of the Indonesian Council General, this exhibition is officially launched. I thank you for tonight.
Thank you very much, Alphonse. Now, I would like to invite Pak Ariel, who is going to moderate the talk that we are going to have tonight. As I mentioned earlier, tonight's event is a collaboration between Monash Hafid Indonesian Engagement Center and Matheson Library. I do want to remind you that we have set up a very nice displays of books and DVDs, as well as journals from the Indonesian collection that we have in Matheson. I keep saying this, the Indonesian collection is one of the most comprehensive collection in Australia, so please have a look at the collection, and if you do want to head up to level 1, that's where we keep our Indonesian collection. I'm going to hand it over to Pak Ariel now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marini. Can I invite all the speakers, first of all, our guest of honor, Mas Alit Ambara, Edwin, and Bridget, to stay with us here in front. Let me begin this evening by acknowledging the people of the Kulin Nations on whose land we are gathered tonight. I pay my respect to the elders past and present. I also need to remind you to switch your telephone on a silent mode if you have not done so. It's such a great pleasure to welcome Mas Alit Ambara from Jogja to be with us at a very cold weather and season at this time of the year. Thank you so much, Mas Alit. I've met Mas Alit before, and I have admired a lot of his work. I think it is, at this time in Indonesia, very difficult to find any artist more political than Alit at the moment. I think he's been very polite to us. What he has shared with us in this room apparently to be some of his mildest work, actually. that's my impression. So if he has heard what Pa Alphonse said earlier and it got the encouragement, I think it can be much wilder than that. But nonetheless, we're gonna like to hear from him. You have already got some brief biodata from him. Let me just read once again for those of you, for the interest of those who have missed it. Alit Ambara studied art at the Jakarta Institute for the Arts in Jakarta. as well as artistry in Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, USA. He's now active as an artist and cultural activist and working in the Indonesian Institute of Social History, or ISSI. And one of the co-founder of ISSI, we understand, is Dr. Hilman Farid, who will be with us as a keynote speaker for the conference in October. So there's some connection going on here, apparently. So we would like to hear from Mas Alit some of his insight about his work, about his view of Indonesia, about art and activism for maybe about 20 minutes. Then we will invite both Bridget and Edwin to say a few words about in response, and we will invite you to comment or raise question. Okay? Without further ado, please, Mas Alit.
Thank you very much. Can I stand up?
Yes.
Because I'm too
Yes,
nervous. First of all, I would like to thank you for having me here tonight, and also thanks Monash University, Louis Matterson Library, and Health Trade Center, Professor Ariel, Birgit, and Edwin invite me and let me show my work here and let me to talk. To be honest, in the first place, I never been intended to be a poster artist. I was in college, in art school, I took sculpture as my major. So I never been taught formally as a graphic designer or making posters. Eventually, I was mingled with these groups. This probably infect me a lot. This group is very informal group called Jaringan Kerja Budaya, or I will really describe as a cultural network. This group was actually, most of them is history students from University of Indonesia. Some of them also activists who've been working in the labor movement that time in 1993, I think. So I was mingled with this group, and we did a lot of things like making discussion, publishing magazines, a lot of things. And probably, and in that time, maybe I'm the only one who taught in art school, so they taught me if I can draw. So when we publishing the magazine, okay, you have to design it, to make a layout, to make an illustration, and so on. So I'm doing it just like trial and error with that kind of stuff we made. So that's my well, in that time in 1993, as you know probably, nothing happened in Jakarta. There was time when 3 weekly magazine was banned, and we have a lot of organizing demonstration that time. And there was one of my friends, Samsar, was beaten up in this Monash Square, you know. It was, yeah, a lot of things happened. There's many demonstrations, I think. And then and then after that, in 1996, yes, there was we organizing, call it Refleksi Kebudayaan. There was a conference. One of the speakers, Professor Ariel. So that was time when one of our prominent writers, Pramudia Naratur, receiving Magsaysay Award, and a lot of protests regarding to that award to him, mostly from the so-called Mani Kabuis, this the who then protest, and one of, I think, major person who then giving back the award, the name Mokhtar Lubis. Yeah. So there was time when I'm still in Jakarta Institute for the Arts, and we held that conference over there, and that was in 1996. So anything, and that's, as you know, then everything escalated from that time. And then in 97, we know that was happened for the Indonesian Democratic Party. There was what you call it? Their office was attacking by mostly the military and everything. So it's all nothing happened, and that was then when I came back from my school in USA directly in 1998. On May 98, I was arrived in Jakarta and directly go to the. Actually, then our friends, all of them, involved in this so-called Tim Relawan untuk Kemanusiaan, or voluntary team for humanity, who led by Catholic priest Romo Sandiawan at the time. And that was my first time. Then I have to deliver mineral water for demonstrator. That night I have to drove in the blockade streets, and then I get lost. And I could find the road because everything is blocked, and then we have to move to near campus around that parliamentary house. So that was the most heroic thing I have been doing in that time, involved in that situation. So the team then, I will show you. Then we try to promote. Yes, that was then the team then tried to campaigning this issue, is to bring the generals to the justice, and we have to make a poster, and we have to put everywhere in the street. And this is my first actually serious kind of poster, and technically this is very manual. I have to draw manually, and then scan it, and then put the words, the text, and then print it. And then we put all on the street. Some of them, friend was arrested because putting this poster, but actually arrested by the tourist police because they thought we make it dirty. Yeah, this is the campaign we then. I'm sorry I could find the most good documentary we did because in that time I don't have any documentation that I've been making. And this poster is one poster, same time with the disappearance people, disappearance activists like Biji Tukul, one of the poet, which did by another friend, Agus Suwage. But we've been discussed that poster in that JKB organization. So we produced these posters, and so from this, then I try to. What I did here is then I tried to contribute to the iconography of the resistance and the struggle. Then I then intensively using posters has become a main medium to to promote or to campaigning to provoke people to involve with the issue. Make it short, then in 2010 there was a event regarding to book banning. That was our organization, Institute of Social History, publishing these books with translation from the English version of the book called Pretext to Mass Murder, and it was banned by the government, and that was the first time book banning happened after Reformation. So then we produced a lot of posters to campaigning anti-book banning, and we invite a lot of artists, mostly young artists, street artists, to campaigning about book banning in Indonesia at the time. So we have this tour exhibition everywhere, and we also not just only the poster, but also poster with quite to showing actually the history of book banning in Indonesia from the colonial times until present. And then in the other hand, we also apply a file suit to let's call it the Supreme Court of Constitution to revoke the arbitrary law used by the Attorney General Office to ban the book. And gladly enough, we succeeded. So now the government no have any law to ban a book, except they have to file a suit in the court. From this campaign, from this using a poster and involving a lot of artists, provoking them, and then we also exercising our rights to use, for instance, the law to revoke that arbitrary law with legacy from the past. And from that on is what I did then, like supporting a lot of movement in Indonesia, and for instance also in Bali, some friends when they try to against the reclamation from the beginning, they then asked me if I can involve with them, and then I made it a poster, series poster, even maybe the most productive time when I involved in this movement in Bali. A lot of posters have been produced, and maybe later we can elaborate the movement, because here there was we have also Roro, who involved in the beginning of the movement. And so the issue which I can bring in the poster, mostly what issue has been happening in Indonesia, like reclamation, against reclamation in Bali or in Rembang for the cement factory, or the issue about 65. That's why what I try to intend is to provoke. And now with internet, with the social media, I easily provoking people widely to debate or discussing the theme or the issue. And I think, that's what I can say for tonight. Maybe if you have a question, anything I can answer later. Thank you very much.
Birgit, from Anthropology of Monash, one of our most valued colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arvid. And thank you very much, Arvid. It's such a pleasure to have you here in Monash. And it's such a great opportunity, I think, to learn from your extensive experiences and to actually discuss what these dynamics mean for the future of social and political developments in Indonesia. So Alit, what you can see from these examples, is actually involved in or providing his voice to some of the most prominent resistance and protest movements in Indonesia. In my comments, I will focus mainly on the Bali case. That's simply the one I'm most familiar with, and that's the context where I got to know Alit and engage with his work. In this Bali case, the so-called investor wanted to create approximately 800 hectares of artificial islands in Benua Bay, in Bali South, an area that's already oversaturated, or the planning was done in the hidden. So all this triggered a fascinating and long-lasting resistance movement called Bali Tolak Reklamasi, or Bali Reject Reclamation, or abbreviated BTR. The movement is clearly, or often reminds one of like global movements such as Occupy. And that's no coincidence, because David Graeber, who is an anthropologist, but also, for those of you who are more familiar with Occupy, he's an important figure in the Occupy movement, and he provided some key ideas and inspiration for some activists in Bali. And Alit himself, he has sort of organized and participated in a couple of Occupy events and exhibitions from 2011 onwards. So BTR, or the Bali movement, is clearly drawing on a set of global protest aesthetics. And this, one of them is this strategic mix of a really broad variety of media, from posters and banners to movement t-shirts and movement songs, to mainstream media like press or TV, to traditional parades, huge demonstrations, to social media, to even the human body as a means to mediate some messages, right? What was I about to say? So, yeah, what I wanted to say is that Alit's posters, actually, they try or manage to integrate that diverse media space. So his posters are set up in Bali streets, making the movement very accessible for ordinary Balinese, right? But his posters are also circulated and spread online via social media, thus making the movement highly accessible for an international audience, and also making it very attractive for that international audience. Similar to Occupy, to make that comparison again, musicians and artists are at the forefront of that movement, and they have a huge followership offline, during concerts, for example, but also online and social media, and that makes it very easy and effective to mobilize, especially the youth. But for me, there are at least two things that are even more fascinating to that movement than this international dimension. And one of them is the fact that all this takes place on an island that is famous for its peacefulness, that is known for its natural and cultural beauty. And this pressure to comply with the tourism industry is certainly one reason why the Balinese for so long decided to stay silent. The 1965-1966 trauma would be another reason. But actually today's youth in Bali is kind of very fed up, to put it simply, with that, political silence, the compliance of the older generation. I mean, arts, and Edwin will maybe say a little bit more about that, they have always been a means of to give expression to explicit or implicit critique towards social and political issues, but it has never happened in such a loud and visual way, a way that actually invites the whole nation or even an international audience to participate, right? So that's one point. And the other point I want to point out, and that's something that's usually ignored when you when people look at or study global movements such as Occupy, and that's a local rooting of the movements. So in order to being able to mobilize a large amount of people, it needed to be rooted in local realities, in local culture, and that was important to mobilize Balinese across the generations, old and young, but across social groupings as well. And Alit, again, his work stands for both this global protest aesthetics on the one side, but also the local rootedness. Alit, as he himself told, he hails from Bali. He knows, he's familiar with the culture, and he uses relevant cultural symbols in his work. So, and Balinese Hinduism with its rich spirituality figures prominently there. So, for instance, the movement argues that the reclamation project would not only destroy that delicate ecological balance of the bay, but it would also destroy Benua Bay as kind of a dwelling place of spiritual beings and gods, and it would destroy this relationship, this balanced relationship between humans, nature, and God. So this impending destruction of a lot of Balinese considered to be sacred, that mobilized people on a large scale. And that's, I think, is the fascinating thing about this movement. That not only required loudness, but it also required a different kind of protest, resistance through, for example, praying and mediation. And both these elements, I think, become visible in Alit's posters. So it definitely needed the joining of a lot of hands, both the young and the old, the more traditional, the cosmopolitans, the loud and the silent one, to sort of mobilize against this outside intrusion. And it's important to note that this is, and I think Alit mentioned that this is an ongoing process. And a lot of people, a lot of activists and sympathizers have already put a lot of energy and time into that. I would have a couple of questions for Alit, but maybe we can wait for the Q&A if there's time. I mean, just I would be very interested to hear more about how you managed to, merge the international dimension, the national and the local dimension. Where the movement and activists like you get the inspiration from, the energy, and maybe also elaborate on where the educative aspect of the art and things like that is. Thank you.
So you have some time to think about answer the question. So that's good that you are raised now. Okay. Now, of course, most of us discussed Indonesia in this room or in the other room where we had our seminars with words. What's so fascinating about the work of Alit is only on a piece of paper with colors and pictures, and yet so powerful. Very few Indonesians has been so dedicated to study precisely that, than Edwin Urin. So I look very much forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you very much. So I also feel very privileged to hear from the artist himself, and also many thanks to Ariel and Birgit for inviting me today, the Monash Herbfeed Indonesian Engagement Center, and also the library. Birgit asked me for some comments specifically about how we could possibly position Alit's work within the broader context of socially engaged art. And I think, our stories will be very complementary. So I can just, probably just repeat a few things that Birgit already mentioned, but just in different words. When preparing a few notes for tonight, I was thinking about three possible contexts, and again, it will very much confirm what Birgit already explained. So the first, the link between art and activism in socially media-steered global activism. The second one, specifically about Bali, the centrality of creative visibility and audibility in the environmental campaigns. And then the third one, a longer history of representation of nature and the landscape in Indonesian modern contemporary visual art. So I think as we see, one of the remarkable aspects of Alit's work is the publication, also distribution of the work under a Creative Commons license on the internet on nobodycorp.org and posteraxie.org. And I think, combined with also the scope of the issues that are covered, so from the Bali rejects the reclamation up to 65 and 98 violence in Indonesia, the Arab Spring and Occupy Wall Street. I think, this in itself urges for this context of global artivism. And artivism here is a contraction of art and activism that has recently become quite popular in the discourse among activists and also academics. So here the art and activism are mutually dependent, they cannot function or be approached in isolation from each other. And I think, very roughly, in artivism, the art moves people politically because of the capacity to move them aesthetically and emotionally, and the other way around. And I think this is also reflected in Alit's, the success of Alit's social media campaign, and his Creative Commons approaches, and the reproduction of some of his work on T-shirts, banners, stickers, etc. And it clearly goes beyond, the conventional art gallery or museum or festival setting. And from the literature, and it's something probably we could discuss further with Alit, but it has been said that this can help with escaping or responding to state control and criminalization. But also, I think very interestingly, the art itself can constantly expand the activist repertoire and counter its exhaustion, normalization, or even commoditization. And actually, I've got a question about this later. Now going to the second context, so specifically about the Bali context. So what is really, as has also been explored in Birgit's own work, what is really outstanding is the foundational role of the visual and performing arts in this movement. And I would argue that the audiovisual richness of the work of the artist involved in For Bali not only draws attention to the environmental problems as such, but also to the broader socio-political factors at the roots of these issues. And one important factor here is actually the creation of the image of Bali as a tourist paradise, which is partially the product, obviously, of audiovisual and literary creativity itself. And most of us would be familiar with Adrian Vicker's work, in particular Bali Paradise Created, where he actually explains how this image has been shaped by tourism posters, idealized landscape painting, Hollywood movies, and other media since colonial times. And I think this umbilical connection between the For Bali campaign and Alit's poster action cannot be seen but an echo of the historical ubiquitous use of posters for tourism campaigns. And the poster rallies are very effective in bringing Bali's environmental problems out on the street, in front of the government buildings, literally within eyesight of politicians and policymakers. And it's been argued by others, by the activists themselves and academics from Indonesia, that the posters can also. I mean, I'm looking forward to Alit's comments on this. But they said that it also has this can have this educational function of visually explaining the sometimes very inaccessible jargon of the legislation surrounding the land reclamation. And as also mentioned by Birgit, what has been mentioned also is that it can contribute to deconstructing this commonly accepted notion of Balinese peacefulness. And in this case, it's projected as something negative rather than positive. Because according to the artists and activists, it refrains Balinese people from action. And because of that, of course, providing only more space for the destructive development. And the posters themselves, on the other hand, would facilitate the reimagining and re-imaging of Bali and Balineseness, which is fundamental to the struggle for social and environmental justice. All right, then the third and final context, and that's to see it in the context of other approaches to the environment in Indonesian art. And this can include aesthetic approaches that go back to the realist or idealized landscape paintings of the so-called beautiful Indies style during and after colonialism, Dutch colonialism. There's also abstract painters who use motifs such as a tree of life to express spirituality, mysticism, Japanese, Balinese cosmology. More recently, there's the works of Indonesian urban new media art communities who use a strong variety of media, from digital technology to microbiological material, to explore all sorts of utopian scenarios, and also in some cases design practical devices for more sustainable relations between humans and nature. But yeah, I personally would position Alit's work more in line with yet another category of environmental artists, and the ones who explicitly seek to map and criticize and counter the social political factors causing environmental destruction in the first place. And perhaps to think about this broader context, and again it would be interesting to see to what extent Alit himself is also in contact with activists from other places. But this could include the multimedia work by artists, and I'm sure with Mulyono you must have worked before, right? In the jacket, yeah. But there's also Tisna Sanjaya from Mulyono. So Mulyono, Tisna Sanjaya, Arak Mayani, Setulagi Madebayak from Bali, and also collectives such as the Gerakan Siru Babara from the 1970s and Taring Padi from the late 1990s. And they've addressed themes including the natural, material and social political impact of deforestation, monocultures, mining, land reclamation, consumer culture, using all sorts of different ways of representation, so from realism to social realism, abstract expressionism, documentary style, parody, and some of this can also be seen in Alit's work. So maybe to conclude, just a few questions, not necessarily to be responded to now or later, but just more general. So just three things that came to mind. First one about the aesthetics itself. Considering that you've been trained in Jakarta, in the US, currently you live in Jogja. So my question was whether you feel that outside perspectives have contributed to the success of the various aesthetic strategies of the Reject the Reclamation campaign. So has it indeed helped with presenting a new imagination of Bali, either not only for the outside world but also for the Balinese themselves? The second broader thought was about the use of social media and the commons. So as mentioned, creativity is crucial in fighting the exhaustion and even commoditization of the activist repertoire. But yeah, how do you yourself keep this going? And we can also come back to what you mentioned about noise. So considering the abundance or noise indeed of all these competing audiovisual discourses in the social media, and would you feel that this is a provocative question, but that your own art may also have a certain expiry date. Is this a source of anxiety for yourself, or is it rather an incentive, to keep on creating and trying to be innovative and try to renew yourself all the time? And then the last one, considering that you cover such a broad area of themes and causes, ranging from the Indonesian local and historical issues to contemporary global movements. So my question was, well, how do you select? And do each of these require different connections and approaches? And where do you see or actively shape interconnections between all of these? I think that comes also back to what Birgit asked before. And if I'm not mistaken, when I also browsed some of your work on the internet, if I'm not mistaken, some of the anti-reclamation posters, they even contain some imagery and symbolism derived or similar to the Occupy movement. So then, my question would be, what is the idea behind this, and also the possible consequences of mixing of themes and aesthetic approaches. So I think that's...
Thank you. So, please give an applause to everybody. I think it would be fair if I give a chance to Ali to respond first to something before you ask more questions, because this couple of beautiful commentators have already raised a number of questions. But I also have been tempted to ask myself, given the emphasis so much on Bali, I think it's not fair not to discuss the question of 1965, because he's one of the strongest critique of the regime's campaign of anti-communism since 1965. If you recall, until recently, even in the elections of the president in Indonesia, one of the major hoaxes and attack against Jokowi was that the allegation he was somehow associated with communists. I mean, there's some currency there. So let me ask you two related questions. One is, what you think you have found most difficult in pursuing your work? What are some of the most difficult challenges that you faced so far? Secondly, what do you want to achieve 5 or 10 years from now with your work? You don't have to answer now, but if you like.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to answer all the questions. I hope I can answer. Firstly, maybe from Professor Ariel's question regarding to 65. What I try to do with poster regarding 65 is I want to provoke a lot of people and engage with the issue. It means how we deal with this, our past, and somehow, like you said, even in that very political level, still that issue is our burden. So, for instance, when I produce commemoration poster for the 50 years of 65, I think I want to show if it's already a lot of young generation is already been doing a lot of things regarding 65. Even they try to find themselves, like for instance, writing books, making a movie, write a song, everything. But in the state level, the state cannot recognize this. It's actually the people is already changed, and they try to deal with this our nation past. So we have a new kind of society, but still with old government, and that still happen now in Indonesia, in that level. And I want just it's quite very difficult to address this issue which kind of quote unquote more, let's call it, academical way, because I don't want to provoke just like very vulgar or very what to call it, vulgar or blatant imagery with the issue, because sometimes, like you probably have been seeing, I don't want to draw a lot of blood about 65 or because now the generation is trying to try themselves to find what the truth about 65, and this is still, and they find themselves fight by themselves and study by themselves and producing a lot of creative production like movie or film, documentary, even they have they interviewed a lot of who've been as so-called survivors, and our young generation now is trying to deal with this, even though the state or the nation, in the nation level, is still avoiding, even rejected. It was happened, and this is I think I don't know, in what I did in the poster, I just try to encourage that kind of idea. And I don't know with the works, because like I said, I never intended to be a poster artist before, so that's why I never thought formally. So I never being scared or being afraid to make a poster, because like I experienced before when I'm in art school. They taught me about how to taking a picture with photography, but after that, when I know how to make a good picture, I'm so afraid to take a picture. So with poster, I never thought formally, so I don't have any afraid, or I don't have so I just do it, what I can feel is good or not. Sometimes with the social media, because when I published it in social media, there was a feedback, and then I said, oh, this is sometimes the feedback is is good to remaking the poster again. So it's quite like